Well, hello, good evening, welcome. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live from News about Desawe Kanda, also live on TV3, Ghana on Facebook, and DSTV channel 279 all across the world on 3news.com. I am Alfred Ocansey. Tonight, all public service workers recruited after the December 7 elections 2024 will lose their jobs because the Mahama-led government has taken steps to terminate all such appointments. But is there any legal backing and really any redress for these persons? That's the conversation that is brewing after this notice from the presidency, signed by the Chief of Staff. Stay with us, we're getting to it. Also, pockets of chaos mar Council of State elections in the Ashanti and Greater Accra regions. We assess the overall election and by extension the relevance of the Council of State. That's a conversation that keeps coming up every now and then. Stay with us, we'll touch on it here on Ghana Tonight. Also, Ghana drops a place in the latest corruption perception index. What does this mean for the new government, which is an agenda to fight corruption? We have a conversation with the anti-corruption campaigners. Stay with us here on Ghana Tonight. As always, you're an integral part of the conversation. Let's hear from you. The hashtag we're using is Ghana Tonight on Facebook and on X. Let's get talking. Let's settle for Ghana Briefs.
The Chief of Staff, Julius Deborah, has directed all heads of government institutions to nullify all appointments made by the erstwhile Akufo-Addo administration after December 7, 2024. This was contained in a circular dated February 10, 2025 and addressed to all heads of government institutions. Accordingly, all heads of government institutions are expected to take the necessary steps to annul such appointments or recruitments and submit a comprehensive report on the actions taken to the office of the Chief of Staff by 17th February 2025.
When you have election, you don't recruit immediately after the election the outgoing government, except that government is taking power from itself, like MPP taking over from MPP. Then recruitment in any form or shape, even that, it does not make economic sense. That's why you have manpower stealing.
President John Dramani Mahama says his commitment to his 120-day social contract remains unwavering as his first budget in March will deliver major expectations. Speaking at the maiden meeting of the ministerial force on the 120 days promises, President John Dramani Mahama has charged the ministers to work diligently as government will not relent on its promises.
The Senior Presidential Advisor on Governmental Affairs is the chair and leading that effort. So you have to work closely with her so that we can make sure that we are faithful to the mandate that the people of Ghana gave us.
Parliament has given the Minister for Health, Kwabena Minta-Kando, 1 week to brief the House on the outbreaks of meningitis and cholera. Members of Parliament on the floor raised concerns over the spate of deaths recorded and demanded an urgent action to save lives. Following a statement by the Minority Leader Alexander Afenyo-Markin, the House summoned the Sector Minister to outline measures in curbing the emergency.
I direct the Minister responsible for health
to appear before the House within 1 week to brief the House on all the health issues raised on the floor.
The minority in Parliament has raised concerns over the recent withdrawal of cases by the Attorney General, Dr. Dominic Ayine, with majority of the cases involving NDC appointees. Speaking through the Swami lawmaker, John Darko, the caucus indicated that the spate of withdrawals and discontinuation of cases 1 month into the John Mahama administration has the tendency to undermine the delivery of justice in the country.
The AG, in essence, turned himself into both a prosecutor and a court of law by ensuring the acquittal of leading members of his own party. What this means is that since the prosecution had already closed its case in most of them, unlike nolli prosequi, which when entered under Section 54 of Act 30, the accused person could have been arrested later by a new government.
The Defense Minister, Dr. Edward Omane-Boamah, says the role of the Ghana Armed Forces has been limited to very essential activities and services when they are needed based on timelines that would be advised. In a media engagement, Dr. Omane-Boamah reiterated that the police service should be able to provide adequate security if the situation at hand is not life-threatening. He said this would help stop the overexposure of the military.
We believe the Ghana Police Service has enough men and women, well trained, some of them with specialized training, to be able to maintain peace, law and order. However, if at any point in time threat levels are very high, you can always fall on the Ghana Armed Forces. We have promised to limit the role of the Ghana Armed Forces.
Additional troops have been deployed to Boko and surrounding areas to restore peace and stability after fighting erupted on Monday following the killing of a woman and her children and the death of a man after 2 commercial buses were ambushed by unidentified gunmen. Similarly, additional security forces have been deployed to Wali and surrounding areas in the northeast region, where reprisals yesterday resulted in the death of 3 people.
As more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Ghana Tonight. Coming up next, all public service workers recruited after the December 7, 2024 will lose their jobs because the Mahama-led government has taken steps to terminate all such appointments. But there's been questions about the legal backing to this and on what basis this is being done and whether these persons who are going to be affected by this directive can seek legal redress. And this is a conversation that's been going on in fact about earlier today, as we brought it to you here exclusively on TV3 earlier today. We got this notice from the Chief of Staff, Julius Deborah. It's directed all heads of government institutions to nullify all appointments made by the ex-Wale Akufo-Addo administration after December 7. And that particular date is instructive, the December 7, 2024, because it was on that day that Ghanaians went to the polls to cast their ballot to elect a leader. And after that process, John Dramani Mahama was elected as president. Now, between December 7, according to this directive, between December 7 and the set period under review, that is the period when Dramani Mahama was sworn in as president-elect of the Republic of Ghana, that's January 7. All those recruitments that took place, call it the last-minute recruitment by the ex-Wale Akufo-Addo administration, that is where this directive is going to apply. But let's look clearly at the directive that came through from the Chief of Staff. This is it. I'm going to put it on the screen right now. That's consistent with government pronouncement in relation to near end of tenure appointments and recruitments. So take note, the near end tenure appointments and recruitments wish to, quote, bring to your attention that all appointments and recruitments made in the public service of Ghana after 7 December 2024 are not in compliance with established good governance practices and principles. So that's the reason they gave for this, that all the recruitments done after December 7, 2024 are not in compliance with established good governance practices and principles. It continues. Accordingly, all heads of government institutions are hereby requested to take the necessary steps to annul any such appointments or recruitments and submit a comprehensive report on the actions taken to this office by 17th February. That is some 6 days away from today. 17th February 2025. Cooperation in this matter is highly appreciated. Julius Deborah issued this. It's the Chief of Staff of the Republic of Ghana and the presidency. And clearly, for many who have been watching how things have been playing out since January 11, that's December 11, some 3 days after the elections, December 7, this is no surprise, because after Jane Adokwah-Mensah declared President John Dramani Mahama as president-elect, then the joint transition teams of the ex-Nana Akufo-Addo administration, as the outgoing transition team and the incoming transition team started meeting, there was a statement that came through from the transition team of President-elect John Dramani Mahama. And that statement we're going to put on the screen right now, detailed, and it had this, essentially, with Felix Kwachofosu in there as the concerns that they had raised about the issues related to the last-minute payments and recruitments by the outgoing administration. And if you look at the date of this letter, December 17, 2024, that had that heading. They had already raised concerns about the last-minute payments and recruitments by the outgoing Akufo-Addo administration. And they had indicated that there was an agreement with the Akufo-Addo-led transition team that all such recruitments in the last minute was going to be done in consultation with the joint transition team. They say that that was not done. The John Mahama transition team said that consultation was not done, and they had gotten information that there was recruitment going on even during the transition period, and they didn't know anything about it. So many who are looking at this say, you know what, if this letter on December 17, 2024 is anything to go by, this was really expected. That's not the only one. There was another one as well on the 23rd of January, 2025. The Chief of Staff asked the heads of the various institutions to put together a list of the former President Akufo-Addo's last-minute recruits onto government payroll. And this read that to ensure the accuracy and integrity of government payroll records, the Office of the President directed all heads of government institutions to provide a detailed information on staff members added to the payroll since December 7, 2024. This was issued on the 23rd of January. The directive, part of the ongoing efforts under John Mahama's administration, seeks to enhance transparency, and the heads of government institutions are required to submit the full name, designation, employee identification, if any, date of appointment, and date added to the payroll for each staff member added within the specified period. That information was supposed to have reached the Chief of Staff's office as of January 31, 2025. So it is pursuant to the information received after this directive on the 23rd of January that this latest directive has come through from the Chief of Staff. That's what we're learning right now. And Austin Gama is a labor expert. He's been following this development quite closely. He's joining us on Zoom right now. So Gama, appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. And I chronicled all these events just to put the matters in context. And knowing this, certainly this development and the directive from the Chief of Staff today was just a matter of time, is it not?
Precisely so. Alfred, thank you, and thank you for your listeners as well. Let me put this in proper professional context. The reality is that there's no evidence, and my checks confirm, that no workforce optimization and work spread arrangement have been made to enable any form of recruitment to be made into the public and civil service during this turbulent period. I say turbulent because normally transition periods are very delicately handled by governments in Africa, particularly in Ghana. And therefore, I was pleasantly surprised when during all those times I was keenly following, and I knew and heard from various sources that recruitments and also promotions were being haphazardly, done to disturb the fiscal space already that was bleeding mercilessly in Ghana. And therefore, it comes as no surprise at all that the Chief of Staff appears to be a little ruthless in this matter. And I think we should applaud him for doing that. Though the people employed might be Ghanaians, I think that it's only fair they themselves should understand and appreciate the fact that the fiscal space we have prevented the Minister of Finance for granting opportunity for nurses who are essential service providers to be recruited into the system. And they've been demonstrating and creating all manner of this, yet we did not hit today. Teachers were not recruited also, and therefore some of the people in the hinterlands suffered, no presence of qualified teachers to teach them. So I think it came as a surprise to the extent that we hearing that close to 1,000 people or so might have been employed, let alone those who have been promoted haphazardly. I think this is quite disturbing, and all Ghanaians should be concerned.
I see. So how about those who will be affected by this directive if they decide to go the legal route and seek redress? You are saying that based on your checks, none of them had any appointment letters or employee numbers. They were probably in the probationary period, and so they would not have legal basis to do so?
Indeed, normally before recruitments are made, some heads of departments that needed these people will have to apply. This is public and civil service. This is not a political party appointment. They are coming to work for the state, and the state will have to pay these people as their, workers. And therefore, workload optimization might have been, done, and there is every justification that the heads of departments or units or sections that will require the services of these people applied justifiably. They might have been recruited, sent to Public Services Commission for a panel to, interview them, do their marks, submit it before they are recruited. Indeed, that period clearly would have shown that they couldn't have engaged them during this period. Let's assume that they might have been going through this process even long time. They were recruited during the transitional or just within the period of the transitional period. That period, I can say with all certainty that should they go to the National Labour Commission or go to the law courts, and let's say I am representing those who are denying them this chance, I guarantee you I have a solid point I can present that will deny them the opportunity, because they have not even qualified as workers yet. They are in the process. They are virtually going through a process to complete their probationary period before confirmation is done. So they cannot raise any tangible argument that will save them.
I see. And what you're saying is quite instructive, because if we make reference to the December 17, 2024 statement that was issued by the John Mahama transition team, if you look at the latter part of the paragraph 1, they say, and I quote, that there was actually a meeting on Friday, the 13th of December. The Joint Transition Team had indicated that if there was going to be any recruitment, payment, and such other actions, they had to be cleared with the Joint Transition Team. But according to the John Mahama Transition Team, the NPP government continued to undertake recruitment and payment without recourse to the said agreement that it should be cleared with the Joint Transition Team. The Akufo-Addo-led transition team also said, well, that's never the case. There was no such agreement. But if you look at the second paragraph, it gives indication of what is happening now. The John Mahama transition team, as of 17 December 2024, had indicated that they were going to reverse all such recruitments. And when necessary, public officials responsible for them will be held to strict account when a formal transfer of power takes place. So this had already been indicated, at least, based on what we're seeing in the transition engagement, is it not?
I can guarantee you that I've done sufficient checks, and I do know that the public service officers and those in the civil service did not, by themselves, approve of this. The other point is that if you recall, Dr. Bampo of CLOSAC, the executive secretary of CLOSAC, has always been on the beat that, look, such recruitments are unacceptable, and predictably, this is the result. Normally, during transition period, as a principle, it is expected that those who will be in the transition team are gentle people, they are honest people, very open to one another. This is the positive assumption. So if by any means, and we have heard it on the radio and television from your various stations, that the transition team of the president-elect then have been complaining about becoming aware of recruitments, massive recruitments, and promotions that were being effected in the public and civil service. And therefore, it's no surprise whatsoever. I will be surprised this matter can be sent to Geneva and they will still not win. So there's no need for anybody to be fetching water with basket. All we need to do now is to appreciate the fact that the fiscal space in the country itself, even with the IMF, do not permit government even then to recruit people, except those that will be essentially required to perform critical jobs, as it were. And therefore, this is nothing that they can try their luck next time by applying to the system. And if they are blessed and they are employed, fine, they are Ghanaians. But for now, we should not be so partisan political in this regard.
And quickly, before I let you go, we've looked at the legal side of things, the professional side of things, as you indicated. The political side of things cannot be ruled out as well, Mr. Game. If you look at this, this is also to satisfy the expectations of the base. I mean, because this was going to happen with reference to what the transition team already indicated. But how does all of this impact on the public service? Because we saw what happened in 2017. Some of the last-minute recruitments that was done by the then Mahama-led administration, a number of them were also laid off. And we're seeing things repeat itself right now. Does that concern you?
Indeed, this is like an African status quo allergy that is showing its ugly head again. And I pray that the level of polarization that we have already, we should, as people with, level-headedness, understand and appreciate the challenge of the state of Ghana, not John Mahama, not the government of NDC, but Ghana as a state is bleeding already. And therefore, it is inappropriate for us to further, wound the same wound again. I think we need to be very careful. And from purely professional side, legally, constitutionally, nobody is to be of servitude to anybody in employment, whether as a worker or as an employer. if you do not want to work with some people for now, it's appropriate that the people take backseat, especially when they are going through their probationary period and they are not yet, cemented in the business. I think this is just fair and should be understood by all.
So, government, appreciate your time. We'll see how the coming days will be on this matter and whether the persons who are going to be affected, and in fact, who are going to be laid off, or their employment status terminated, rendered null and void by this directive from Julius Deborah, the Chief of Staff, will take the legal route.
With them.
Right on.
With them, but there's very little one can do about it.
Right on. We'll see how the coming days will look like on this. Thank you. Appreciate you as always. Austin Gabe, is a labor expert, joining us here on Ghana Tonight. But then again, when we talk about the public service, that's the target for this directive. Who are we talking about? And which category of persons are likely to be affected by this directive from the Chief of Staff who are going to effectively lose their jobs, right? This is it. Article 191 of the 1992 Constitution, the public services of Ghana as defined shall include the civil service, the judicial service, the audit service, the education service, prison service, parliamentary service, health service, statistical service, national fire service, customs, Division of Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, the Ghana Police Service, immigration, the legal service, the public services of Ghana, talking about public corporations other than those set up as commercial ventures, essentially, and then public services established by the Constitution, that's this, and then also such other public services as Parliament may by law prescribe. So this is the category of institutions and jobs that are going to be affected by this directive. And already we had some employment that was taking place in the last part of December, after the December 7 elections in the Bank of Ghana and some other places as well. So we will see essentially how the coming days will look like as this directive is carried out as issued by the Chief of Staff. But coming up next here on Ghana Tonight, pockets of violence mar Council of State elections in the Ashanti region and the Greater Accra region. We assess the overall election and, by extension, the relevance of the Council of State. This matter never seems to go away, and it's one that we're going to spend some time on here on Ghana Tonight. But while the election of the 16 regional representatives to the Council of State was generally peaceful across the country, Greater Accra and the Ashanti regions witnessed various degrees of some chaos. Now, in the case of the Ashanti region, the violence was so grave that it disrupted the elections, for which reason a representative was not elected as of the end of the process. I want you to take a look at exactly what happened, first of all, in the Greater Accra region. But let's put it on record. For the Greater Accra region, despite the chaos, Nene Drolo Boso Adamte, the first, was elected overwhelmingly by the delegates as the representative for the Greater Accra region. So that's the news that we have for you. But take a look at what happened prior to the exercise coming to an end in the Greater Accra region. Take a look. What we're seeing right now is the chaos that characterized the early hours of the voting to elect the Council of State representative for the Greater Accra region. As a matter of fact, as of 11 a.m., no one had cast their ballot, but afterwards the process started. And you have Ni Laye Afoteagbo, together with a number of others as well. And you see Anthony Nukpenu and others who were trying to restore order, and the Ghana Police Service was well on hand and present to ensure law and order is restored in that place. And after this initial chaos, as we saw it, let's hear them. Let's hear them and what exactly happened. Take a look. The list of persons who contested the Greater Accra Council of State elections, Nilaya Fotiagbo, and that's also Kwamla Ampong and Rebecca Humenu, Anan Ni Ayi, Samuel Dia, Nene Drolo Bosu Adamte the first who was elected, and then also Samson Seram Kojo Agbemati, and you have Joseph Tete, and then also Musa Ziad, Albert Nau as well, and Edmond Siam, all in there as well. We'll run through the names of the persons who were elected eventually in some of the other regions as well, and by how many votes. We have all that data for you. But for the Ashanti region as well, that chaos there led to the disruption of the counting process, and so they do not have a representative. And that's what you're seeing on the screen right now. Let's give you an idea of exactly what happened earlier today in the Ashanti region. Ibrahim Abubakar, Ashanti regional correspondent. Ibrahim, you were in the thick of things, the chaos that we just saw. Now, from the journalist perspective, we understand some of you were attacked as well, correct?
Exactly. About 5 journalists in Kumasi were attacked during this confrontation. In fact, for the Ashanti region, the voting process started very peacefully around 8 a.m. and around 10 to 11, 85 out of the 86 had already cast their ballot. So we were waiting for only one person to come. So by 11:30, that person came, cast his ballot, and polls were closed. So the electoral officials, together with the agent of the 12 candidates vying for the position, started with the sorting process. So they were done with the sorting, and just when the counting process was about to begin, then we saw these macho men storming the place, destroying ballots, destroying other voting materials, and disrupting the entire process. So in the Ashanti region, like you rightly said, counting was not done and declaration was also not done.
I see. And any indication of when this process will resume for the eventual winner to be declared?
So for now, we are waiting on what the Electoral Commission will advise the next line of action, because like I rightly mentioned, even though the voting process ended, sorting was done, and other contestants who were standing there judged from the ballot that they had, they started jubilating, hoping that at the end of the day, when the counting is done, they will be declared winners. But because the ballot, some of the ballots were destroyed, none of that happened. So as we speak, we do not know whether the Electoral Commission will opt for a rerun of the entire process, or they have an alternative of going about with the counting process and duly declaring whoever won the election. So for now, we are all waiting on what the electoral officials will say.
I see, but then we saw that some of the electoral materials were destroyed, at least by the video that we've been showing right now. Did you get information as to what type of documents were destroyed? Is it the ballot papers or the sheets for declaration that could possibly affect the process, the next phase of it?
So for now, EC has not come clear to that. But what I saw there was that just when they were about to begin the counting, this confusion erupted, and the EC officials picked some of the ballot papers, put it back to the ballot box, and moved towards the conference center at RCC, that's the Yasantua Conference Center. The police, in fact, escorted them, hoping that they will be able to take them in there safely so that they continue with the counting process. But unfortunately, just when they were about to enter that conference, or the tax also connected them, took the ballot box away from them, opened it, and started destroying everything in the ballot box. So for now, it is not too clear whether it is all the ballot papers that were destroyed or the EC officials managed to hide it. Mind you, it was just 86 ballots that it was due for counting. So it's even possible that during the chaos, they may have hidden those 86, leaving the other ballot papers that were not in use into the ballot box. That is the information that we are having. But personally, we saw them destroying a lot of the voting materials there. And the EC officials eventually have to leave the place because it wasn't safe for them. They left without doing any form of declaration. So in the Ashanti region, whilst almost all the 15 other regions or 14 other regions have been able to successfully elected the representative of the Council of State, the Ashanti region has to wait for another day for that to be done. Like I said, we do not know whether the EPC will schedule another voting to another day or even to another venue, or they will have a way of going about declaring the results.
I see. And we got notice of the police giving an announcement of a manhunt for these persons who caused the chaos. Any update on that? Has any arrest been announced as yet?
Well, for now, no arrest has been made. In fact, the police were there in their numbers when the macho men stormed the area. But unfortunately, most of the officers that were, in fact, I didn't even see one of them holding or armed. So maybe that's how come they gathered that vim or confidence to destroy everything there. And the police were there, the police commander was there. In fact, at a point in time, he was even pleading with them to exercise restraint because some of them even attempted attacking some of the officers because they claimed they had hit them. So the commander was there. So we don't know, maybe going forward, maybe hopefully in the coming days, they will be able to identify the people involved in this act and possibly arrest them. But as I speak to you now, no arrest has been effected.
Ibrahim, apologies. In fact, sorry for that ordeal that you had to endure earlier today together with your colleagues in there. And as the police is on to this is one that we'll keep an eye on as well to update our viewers on this. Ibrahim Abubakar, thank you so much for this update, as always. Is our Ashanti regional correspondent, and talking about the Ghana Police Service's notice on the chaos that characterized the Ashanti region's Council of State representative elections. This is exactly what they say. They say they've launched a manhunt for a group of thugs who stormed the Ashanti Regional Coordinating Council and disrupted today's Council of State regional elections in Kumasi. Police are currently reviewing all available footage to identify and arrest the perpetrators and bring them to justice. So, including the video that we just showed to you, and we'll put that video back on the screen for you, and what will happen in the Ashanti region. The Ghana Police Service says that they are reviewing all video footages of this chaos to identify the persons who masterminded, were behind this chaos that disrupted the counting process, which has led to no announcement of. And so these persons in there, all of these, they say they are analyzing the videos, and all of these videos. We here at TV3 as well, and the Ghana Police Service in the coming days, also contacting us, making all these videos available to them. But you can see the images and the videos of persons who were involved in all of this clearly on the screen. And so the police say they are analyzing all of these videos. We'll see what the outcome will be from them. But let's take you through the persons who were elected today. It's not just the Ashanti region that doesn't have a representative elected. The Northeast region as well, we understand the top two contenders had 6 votes each. And so because of the tie, they couldn't declare. And so we'll wait to see what will be the next, whether they're going to rerun the elections amongst the top two or the entire process. But with the Greater Accra region, as I indicated to you, for the Greater Accra region, Nene Drolo Boso Adamte, the first elected the Greater Accra regional representative of the Council of State. In fact, he pulled 40 votes out of the 58 votes cast. And Nilaya Fotiagbo, the former Greater Accra regional minister, pulled 16. And so even though there were 12 contestants for the Council of State position in the Greater Accra region, Nene Drolo Boso Adamte the first pulled 40, Nilaya Fotiagbo 16. The 2 votes left were shared amongst the rest of the 10. And so you can imagine, some of them went home with 0. And you see, for the Bono East region, Yao Kagresi also to represent the Bono East region there on the Council of State. And also, former minister, he's held positions in various capacities. Alhaji Mohammed Mumuni, a former member of parliament for that matter, also going to be representing the Northern region on the Council of State. The former Kumbungu MP, Alhaji Mohammed Mumuni, there is elected earlier today. Huge margin of victory for him. Also, Richard Kins Atiko is also going to represent the people of the OT region on the Council of State. Relatively young man. We have quite a number of young people on the Council of State as well as elected to counsel the president in the next 4 years. Chairman Michael Edu, Western North Region representative elected. Yaotre, Ahafo Region. Michael Kwame Mumuni, Upper West Region representative for the Council of State as well. And then you have Gabriel Kwamega Atokle for the Volta region, relatively young man as well. And Chianapio Pe Ditundini Adiali Yagitam III, Upper East Regional Representative on the Council of State. Maxwell Boache, as well, Western Regional Representative. In fact, he also generated a lot of conversation on social media, 32 years of age. He's going to represent the people of the Western region on the Council of State. And Tingaura Samson, also the elected Savannah Regional Representative on the Council of State. So we have these persons, and then we're waiting for the Northeast region and also the Ashanti region. And then we'll put them out, definitely, as and when they come through. But based on the Professor Ya Ntiama Bedu Emolument report between 2017 and 2021, these are the recommendations and the salaries for the 31 members of the Council of State. The chairman, based on that particular recommendation, which had been applied over the period between 2017 and 2021, the period under review, the chairman of the Council of State was paid $28,455, and this is subject to review, so certainly all things being equal would go up. But $28,455, other 30 members, $26,266, and in terms of the ex gratia payment after 4 years, each member per this recommendation was to take home 365,000 cedis, and the total over 11.3 million Ghana cedis. And that's why questions have been raised about whether the Council of State is still relevant, and because we are spending so much on them. And you recall Toby Apede, the 14th, already coming out 3 years ago indicating that, look, I mean, what are they doing? And the fact that sometimes they go and sit, not much is done, even their recommendations are not binding on the president. And so there has to be a review of the Council of State's functions, the structure, and their operations if we are spending this much on them. Well, Samuel Kudjato, who was a member of the Council of State in Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's administration, shares a different view. He says they were doing so much that the public doesn't know. Take a look.
Americans don't understand. Oh, they told me that, oh, these people, they are there and they're collecting allowance. And I said, no, you don't get the picture. We are there to check the president continuously, to have dialogue with him, to question him, why is this? So this should be done this way, that should be done that way. And when we even need expertise, we go out, we call the experts to come to appear before us. And particularly, there are young people who are so ignorant, and yet they scream and they shout as if they know it all. Left to me alone, I will insist that every Ghanaian will study history as a compulsory subject.
That's Samuel Kudjato there, renowned legal practitioner. Well, the likes of Oliver Bakavomawa, who is also a private legal practitioner, says Council of State has outlived its usefulness. It must be scrapped. Many of you think same. But we're back shortly after this quick break. We're coming up next year on Ghana Tonight. Ghana drops again one place down on the Corruption Perception Index. What does this really mean for the new government's strategy to fight corruption? Stay with us. We're back shortly. The previous years, Ghana has scored 42 out of a possible score of 100. That's 42 over 100. And in the CPI 2024 released, the ranking 80th out of 180 countries assessed globally. What this basically means is that Ghana has dropped from the 2023 score of 43 down to 42. Now, I'm going to show you how Ghana fared or has fared over the period, over the years. And it doesn't tell a very good picture. And the Local Trust of Transparency International, that's the organization that released this ranking. That's Ghana Integrity Initiative. Executive Director Mary Ada is joining us on Zoom right now. Mary, appreciate your time. Thank you for always staying up, joining us here on Ghana Tonight. a worrying development, not just for government and Ghanaian people, but for you as well, the anti-corruption crusaders, is it not?
Certainly, but definitely it's not like this has struck us out of the blue moon. The data over the past few years have shown that there was a potential for Ghana to drop. And then also looking at the key issues that have been in the space when it comes to fighting corruption, you shouldn't be too surprised that this has happened.
We shouldn't be too surprised. But then again, if you speak to the previous administration members there, they including the former president, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, they would always tap themselves on the shoulder that they're doing well in the fight against corruption as of the time, 2024. So what led to this reduction?
So the CPI, as you may be aware, is an index that brings together various indices. So it's a composite, as we say, it bringing together various indices from different surveys that have happened over time. It spans a certain period and to be entered into the data to be considered. Then we have some of them include African Development Bank data, the Bertelsmann Foundation Sustainable Governance Index. We have the Bertelsmann Foundation Index itself. Then the Economics Intelligence Unit country ratings is one. We have the Freedom House. We have indices such as the Varieties for Democracy. I don't have them offhand. The World Bank CPIA and the World Economic Forum. And the World Bank CPIA is very instructive because it looks at issues around transparency, accountability, access to information, and state capture. Varieties of Democracy would pay attention to almost the same things, but then it goes beyond that to say corruption in the executive, corruption in the judiciary, and corruption in the legislative branches of government. When you look at the PRS International Country Risk Guide, we also have issues around corruption in the form of excessive patronage, nepotism, job reservations as part of crony employments. Then we have exchange of favors, secret party funding, and close ties between politics and business. Others would look at bribery and corruption itself. Others are looking at bribery in the private sector. And remember, the index is calculated based on the interactions between these business people and also academics who deal with perceptions we create out there that government is indifferent, leadership is indifferent. We are not paying attention to government's independence of us have gone down and been going down. We have had journalists who have been abused. We have had journalists who have uncovered some loot and rot, having to take cover somewhere. And then the various guardrails that we have put in place. What are some of these barriers that we have put in place to make sure that corruption doesn't flourish? Is another one. Then we talk about issues around conflict of interest and then enforcement of the rules. And these, you can agree that we have spoken to this severally. We carry on to set up institutions, and then at the end of the day, we leave them to their own whims and caprices, most of the time denying them the sources of funding to help them do their work.
Right.
And so they become very toothless in many of the cases. They are not able to buy it.
Indeed. And we're going to put the positions that we have, or the scores over the last 11 years. And it's from 2012 to date until 2024. It paints a certain picture. Now, Mary, this is it. In 2012, this is about 45 over 100, the possible score of 100. In 2013, the first term, or the first term of John Dramani Mahama, 46-48, which actually the highest we've had since the last 12 years. It dropped to 47 over the possible score of 100, 43. And that 43 was John Mahama's lowest in his first term as president. Then it went down below. The lowest we've scored, that was the first year of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, 40 over 100. The perception of people that really government was, or corruption was that high. It was 43 over 100 from 2020 all the way to 23. And then it's dropped down to 42. The 43 was bad, and then this is even getting no better. So really, what is going on? How do you expect this administration to interpret this, especially because every time this has come up in the previous administration, they said this is just perception. There's no touch of reality to it, Mary.
For me, I believe that governments who pay attention to surveys and also most of the time civil society voices would do better in this fight. So it's for governments. The optics, but also action is very important. And so how do we engage? How does government take this up? I've heard people say this is 2024, and this creates an opportunity, or it's an avenue based on which the president and his assigns would then interrogate some of these and put in place the needed policies and some of the needed interventions that will help us to bridge some of these gaps. We have talked about excessive politicization in the past. We have talked about excessive interference. And these are some of the key issues which are so clear that when we do them, we would be making significant gains in the years ahead, mind you. Mind you, it's not just a year. Some of the data could go for 2 years. So don't expect too many, such a big improvement. And also the improvement is not just based on what you say. Action must show that what you have said is accompanied by great action. And it is only then that you begin to see the results. People will begin to go to the various offices to procure, and they will be doing it without any corruption. People will see that people who have engaged in wrongful acts are in every space being dealt with, both administratively and also if there is need at the level of the courts. When people see this, then the narrative will change.
Okay.
And I believe the incoming government has every opportunity to ensure that it engages to get the results we want.
Mary, you mean the current government, not the incoming? John Mahama is president now, right?
Oh my God, there are 31 days today. So this current government, the government of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, would do better. And we have seen that in the past they've done better. If you look at the highest score of 48 for this country, it was achieved in 2014 when the current president was also in power. And so we anticipate that there would be a good discourse and then good collaboration to do this work. We expect that going forward, even as they are speaking today, when the results come out next year, they would still remain focused and speak to the issues and not turn the discussion into whether it is true or not true. The optics across the globe is not too good for us.
Right.
We need to pay attention and do a lot more for action to see, because the demand for public accountability is highest now more than ever.
Absolutely. Appreciate you for this. Mariada, thank you. Executive of Ghana Integrity Initiative, local chapter of Transparency International. Thank you very much for staying with us here on Ghana Tonight. Join us same time tomorrow for another conversation. My name is Alfred Ocansey. Have a good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.